In this presentation, I'd like to talk to you about child labor, where we've come from since the early 1900s to where we are today. Child labor is often thought to be taboo. Many people think that children should not be working these days. However, we know that child labor is still going on today. Before the 1930s, it was normal to see children working on farms and in the factories alongside their parents. It was necessary to help them provide for their families. All that changed in the 1930s with the Fair Labor Standards Act, and once it was put into place, it prohibited children from working. Even though it's against the law for children to work, there are some people that think undocumented child labor is still going on today. Child labor is a potentially dangerous problem that many people think is still going on in the United States. Just as child labor was unnecessary in the 1930s, child labor is still unnecessary today. There are many people with the proper qualifications and experience to work the jobs that children are sometimes put in. There are many options and skill levels for employers to choose from these days. There is no reason why children are needed in the workplace. However, some companies believe that they are able to get away with paying lower wages to these young children and no benefits, along with treating them half as well as they would their documented employees. In this article, I'll explain the problems and changes in the United States regarding child labor and labor laws that need to have more constraints and consequences for them to work. There are less problems today, however, there are still some issues that need to be addressed. In the article written by Christy Ellis, she interviews Heidi Solis, and Heidi states that many changes remain in the fight against child labor, but the department is committed to raising awareness, improving the quality of and access to education, and building the capacity of governments and civil society organizations to address the issue of children in need. The first nationwide law was passed in 1930. In 1953, Massachusetts passed the first such statewide law, followed by New York in 1954. Children in the workplace before 1930 were given small wages and many did not attend school. In the textile factories, children as young as 5 were used for loom work, and small children worked in shipyards and mines. Parents felt that it was their young children's job to help contribute to the family so that they could help put food on the table and have a roof over their heads at night. Many parents nowadays consider child labor as child abuse, and that under no circumstances should children be working instead of attending school. In 1907, Alabama law said children aged 12 to 16 years old must attend school for at least 8 weeks per year. Today, children are not allowed to miss that much school in 1 year without legal consequences for their parents. Today's adolescents might well be shocked to learn how hard their counterparts toiled less than a century ago. Child labor might have been necessary before the 19th century, with families needing help on their farms. However, that is different than having a child work a dangerous job at a factory that could potentially put their lives in danger. Many children were put to work doing jobs that adults were not able to do due to their size. Children's small hands were often used in tight spaces in factories. There are now child labor laws that have been put into place to ensure that children are not able to work in these conditions. However, the government does need to do a better job of monitoring this more closely to prevent future cases. In conclusion, child labor is unnecessary, dangerous, and still possibly a hidden problem in the United States. Before the 1930s, it was acceptable for children to work, and it was also the norm. Nowadays, it's unacceptable to most of the population. Companies and other businesses need to be checked regularly by the government to make sure that they are not employing children to work for their small businesses and companies. There needs to be more child labor monitors that visit these small businesses and companies unannounced and more frequently.